See some learning outcomes and some rubrics, but there is no clear instruction for this particular final. Clear instruction in a sense is like I'm not giving you the exact what is it, the instruction or step-by-step things that you need to do these things. That's because you already have done 5 projects. This project is on your own. You will work on that particular project. So let me go through the project description real quick. So the project name was Clinton Wright. It was like, I'll be discussing those things in a minute. So what is the learning outcomes of this project? You need to use the techniques you have learned so far in this class to produce a solution. Sometimes you need to read and process the data file, create a data in a form that is convenient for processing by a program, formulate an argument, and draw a conclusion of your own based on the data. Interpret data you were given so that you can answer a question. Work with the spreadsheet data in the Python program. Here's the structure. You can see the bls_private.csv file that are given in the canvas. You can see here bls private p7.csv. This is the file, but you need to work on your own. So we provide you a copy of this file. You may download your own copy as instructed below. In addition to that, you need to create a text file, which is named as precedents.txt. This is basically a text file that you will create. Make sure you follow the guidelines given in the contents of that particular file I'll be discussing in a minute. What is the project output? So this is a project and also a final exam. You'll decide how to interpret the data and what does that mean. What your conclusion is, how to formulate and present your argument that supports your conclusion. Okay, what is the problem? So former President Bill Clinton said in his speech into the Democratic National Convention in Charlotte in 2012, since 1961, for 52 years now, the Republicans have held the White House 28 years, the Democrats 24. In those 52 years, our private economy has produced 66 million private sector jobs. So what's the job score? Republican 24 million, Democrats 42 million. In the packed convention hall, it was one of the night's biggest applause lines. But the question is, was he right? So did he have his facts right? Your project is to convince the grader or me whether Clinton was right or wrong. We provide you a formatted copy of BLS private.csv file, which is a download from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, bls.gov. Data in the file are in thousands. So Clinton probably got his data from an article on Bloomberg.com. This is no longer publicly available, but Bloomberg's writer got their data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS, at the US Department of Labor. The definitive non-partition source of jobs data. In the quote above, you can see that he refers to private employment data, seasonally adjusted. The data can be found. So if you check the box, total private employment, I'll show you how to find the data. You then need to select the years from 1961 up to 2012. The result is an Microsoft Excel file that can be saved in a comma-separated value format like CSV. You already have worked with the CSV file. You should verify that we are providing you the correct data. That means we are giving you a data. So data is like bls private.csv. You need to download the data from the bls.gov using those parameters. First thing is like you need to verify that we are providing you the right data. We may not give you the right data, so you need to verify it first. Then you need data on the precedents in the specified time period so that you can check Clinton's statement. what data do you need? Part of your task is to figure out what data you need. You will have to research the precedents to gather data and store it in a file that can create called like precedents.txt. Your precedents.txt file cannot have any job data in it. All job data must come from the BLS private.csv file. Your precedents.txt file will simply be a file of words and numbers that you can create using a simple text editor or Excel. Just the precedent information, the precedent's name and their time period. That's all for the precedent.txt data, like file. You're not providing any job data in that particular file. The job data should come from the BLS underscore private.csv file. As I told you, we are giving you a file. First, you need to verify it. So maybe my file is not right. So if you're working with that file, your answer may not be correct. So make sure you verify it from the original website. Okay. Your task is to analyze and synthesize the input from the BLS private.csv file and precedent.txt file to see if you can verify or discredit Clinton's statement. There is a number of implicit challenges such as what does Clinton mean by produced, and other ideas open for interpretation. So produce, that can be a political word, but you have to prove with your produced data that you're working with BLS private or precedent.txt. But sometimes when you're arguing based on yes or no, you can interpret that particular word produced. What is meant by the produced? But you need to produce some data first. You may ask what output we expect from your program. This is purposefully unspecified. You decide what is the most effective way to make your point. You need enough output to show that you have verified or discredited Clinton's assertion. Simply saying verified or not is not sufficient. Justify your assertion. Simply quoting other articles will earn you 0 points regardless of your effort. That means you can get some data from articles by quoting, but no, not for this project. For this project, you need to generate some data. And then whenever you are arguing based on verification or discretion, you need to justify with your generated data. Your code, your comments, and your output need to convince the grader that you solved the problem with understandable code that answered the question being asked. What are the logistic and the files? The first thing is like the project may not be turned in late as because it's the final project and this is due on the very last day of class. So you are not supposed to turn in late. If you miss the deadline, you miss the final project's grade. So what you need to do, you will write and or modify several files. I have mentioned and or modify. Maybe you need to modify our given file. Maybe you don't need to. So it's your call or it's your judgment. You need to get the information from bls.gov data, and based on that data, maybe you need to modify. There are several files as part of this project. This BLS private.csv file contains the provided data. You may modify this file. If you ever need the original, you can find it on the canvas. Precedent.txt should contain information that your analysis can use about the precedents. This file must not contain job data. Your source file name should be factcheck.py, will contain the relevant Python code. Use it to conduct the analysis of the data. It may print the result to the terminal or to a file called like conclusion.md file. So MD file writing is nothing but writing a normal file, just extension is like .md. It's like a markdown file. If you go to the Google or any AI component, what is the markdown template? You can find it there. Like simple hash, like one hash sign is like a header. If you need to write a paragraph, it's like a dash, something like that. Like some some convention of writing to the MD file. So conclusion.md should contain your answers imposed to the questions. You may enter plain text or optionally use the markdown formatting. Here's the markdown formatting. You can find those details. You may write the contents to the file manually or programmatically. Like you can write by your own, like typing, or you can just print it through the function call or through your source file call. Whenever you're running your code, it will print to that file. This is the one way. The other way is like you can write by your own manually. Both are correct. The provided BLS CSV data file is cleaned up and should be straightforward to use with any of the various Python modules you might consider using. As I told you, you may need to modify it. Though I have mentioned straightforward to use, but there's a question whether you need to modify it or not. You choose which data structure you want to use in analyzing your data. That is not specified for you. I haven't specified in data structure here whether you can use a dictionary, a list, a tuple, or a string, whatever it is. I haven't mentioned it. It's your call. You'll choose it. However, we do not expect you to use classes. So though we have covered object-oriented programming, but we are not expecting you to write the object-oriented paradigm here. So do not use any class or object-oriented things here. Just the functional programming. Note that two precedents did not complete their terms, and that may change the number a bit. A correction might affect the result. What is the deliverable thing? Attach a single zip file that includes all the required file. What are the required file? The factcheck.py, your modified data, if you need to modify it. Otherwise, you can just provide the data that we have given to you. Precedent.txt that you will create and you'll write, and conclusion.md if it is automatically generated by your code. Otherwise, you don't need to. What is the grading rubrics? Labor data used as input in correct and complete. Give result for Democratic precedent. Give result for Republican precedent. Give a clear conclusion that answered the question being asked. What is the question? Was Clinton right or wrong, right? Results are correct given assumption made. Conclusion drawn in reasonable given assumption made. Obviously, the answer, the correct answer, it could be yes or no. There is no right answer here. It could be anyone, yes or no. Not necessarily yes will get 100% point, no will get none. You will get full point, but you need to justify your answer. If you're saying yes, you justify your answer. Why you're saying yes? If you're saying no, you justify it. But make sure you need to write the answer there. Precedent.txt file contains no labor data, only data about the precedents. There is a module docstring with the required information, including exactly how to run the program. This is the important thing. You may use a different way to run your program. Maybe you can use command line argument to pass the data file, or we are assuming that there are like two files, two input files. You need to write those information there. Like you need to run this code in particular way. You need to pass those two files in command line, or since we are given those two files, so you can say like, well, those two files are given. Make sure the file name is correct. You need to run the code only. You don't need to pass any input file. So make sure in that module docstring, you need to provide the required information, how I can run your program. Make sure your program validates input and fails gracefully when necessary. For example, you asked me to use the precedents.txt, but I'm using precedent.txt. Make sure your program doesn't throw any error. Rather, it handles the exception and show me the error message, like this file doesn't exist. Okay. Your code has a main function with conditional execution. There is no global code in this particular project. Every function has a proper function docstring. One is function docstring, another is program docstring or the module docstring. Module docstring contains the information how I can run the program, but the function docstring shows me what that particular function is doing. Variable name and the coding style follow a consistent style, snake case only, no camel case. In this particular project, I don't expect you to write a camel case. You are forced to use the snake case convention. So this is the don'ts. Don'ts, do not use camel case. You need to use the snake case strictly. A single character variable like I, E doesn't follow the snake case convention. So for example, in a loop, you're writing I. So if you're writing one single character as a variable name, the snake case convention doesn't follow. In the snake case convention, it requires at least 3 characters. If you're not using I, probably you can use underscore. If you're using I, probably write a meaningful one. For example, like precedent, like in a precedents.txt, you are iterating all of those precedents. So in a variable name, you can write precedent or PSRI, something like that, not P. P doesn't make any sense to me. So single character variable is not allowed. The program passes the style checker with no warning. Warning can be found due to unnecessary space or tabs. This is like a clean code. Make sure you don't have too many spaces, too many tabs. Like 1 or 2 lines is fine, but if you're like using multiple lines, 5, 10, then probably I will deduct those points for the code cleanness. Okay. Any question about the project? Yes.
So what exactly is the main Python file doing?
So the main Python, like Python file is doing reading the input. So what is the input here?
PLS private CSV and present.
And the present.txt. Not really. I'm giving you that file, but you're not sure whether that particular file is clean or correct, right? Make sure, yeah, definitely it's like an input, but maybe you need to modify. So you need to verify that file first, and then whenever you verified the file, that particular file is the input file. But yeah, precedent.txt is the input file. But BLS private, maybe you need to modify it. Okay, and then what you need to do in that particular fact check.py file, in that particular file, maybe you can verify my given file. If it's not verified, you need to modify it. Then the next task can be like, well, what you need to generate based on the rubric. Give result. So I have given those rubrics here. Make sure the input is correct and complete. Give the result for the Democrat. Give the result for the Republic. You should write a clear conclusion of your answer. And then finally, based on those answers and based on Clinton's assertion, you can judge whether it's a true or yes or no. Based on the yes or no, you need to write something there. That's what it's doing by this particular factcheck.py file. It is checking the fact whether it is correct or not. The conclusion.md file, or you can print it to the terminal, that whether the fact check and your assumption are aligned. Does it make sense?
I think so.
Yeah. As I told you, purposefully, I haven't given the clear instruction for this particular project. I'm giving you some vague data and some assumption. You have your files, you have your data, you need to verify it. It could be yes or no. It doesn't matter. But make sure you generate the result. And whenever you're answering, your argument should follow that particular result. You can add some articles there as well. That doesn't harm you, but you have to generate the data, the result. Make sense, Whit? So as you have seen, there is a bonus question in the final exam. The bonus question is like, make sure you submit the project for us first and then submit the bonus question. Well, as the saying goes, there are 3 kinds of lies, teamed lie, and statistics, So since it's the statistics, Simply having correct data doesn't mean that you are telling the correct story, and that could apply to Clinton's quote. In what says is the wrong data for the context in which it is being used. And then how could the number be adjusted to better reflect the influence that a president has on these data? Answer this question for bonus point in this assignment. So you need to answer this question in a different assignment, not this one. If you go to the modules page, you can see there is an extra credit thing here. Final exam bonus question. You need to answer those questions in that particular assignment. It could be a text box, I think. In that text box, you just answer those questions. Now, what is the bls.gov website? You can find the data from here. This is the bls.gov. bls.gov. And what I've mentioned, I mentioned that seasonally adjusted total private employment. You need to select the years from, 1961 to 2012. So in this particular web page, you need to find out private employment, not seasonally adjusted. It should be seasonally adjusted. But it is seasonally adjusted. Retrieve the data. Make sure you choose the year from 1961 to 2012. Go. Here's the data. You need to extract the data as an Excel file or a CSV file, and I'm giving you a CSV file. First thing is like check those two files are identical. Not just checking by their ID or checksum. You need to check those two things line by line. If all data are correct. If they're correct, only then you can proceed to the next. Does that make sense? And make sure you write comment at the very beginning how I can run your code. If you're not giving me that information, probably I need to send you a message. And after the last day of class, I cannot send a message to the Canvas. So it's better to write the comment on that particular case. Okay. As I mentioned, do not use any object-oriented paradigm here, as because mostly we have covered functional programming. It's better to use function by function. For one specific task, write the function, make sure you have a main function. Main function can take the input, generate the output. You could either print the output to the terminal, or you can print those things to the conclusion.md file. And as I told you, the MD file is like a markdown. There are some formatting for the markdown. You could either use the formatting or not, like a plain text. Both, like all three are okay for the output. But just answering yes or no without generating the output will not give you any point. In addition to that, make sure your program runs correctly. If there is an error when I run your code, then it is hard for me to assess your final project, since I don't have the answer. I need to judge by your writing, by your code. Sometimes I fixed previously and then run your code, but not always I have that much of time to fix your code and run that code to generate the output. So it's better to run the code before you submit to me. Okay? Any question?